Okay, guys. Phew, I should be live. Hi and welcome to this, my personal, so to speak, choice for tonight, since I wondered what to continue with this Saturday evening after the finale of Hell's Reach, which, as you saw, shook me to the core. So yeah, I had to freaking compose myself after this. I didn't expect that I'm gonna cry on stream a little bit. That just because I tried to hold on. you know. Yeah. So, a little bit of a disclaimer and the topic that we are going to talk about, the video that we are about to see, and I'm gonna talk over it, not over it, but I mean I'm gonna comment on it. So this is just a great video, one of my favorites by Wolf Lord. And before that, I saw this quote that we are about to discuss and that he is discussing in entirely other video. I have to see where it was, but once again, it was about Konrad Curze and this just amazing thing that happened, so to speak, that we're about to discuss. So, firstly, guys, since the beginning of my 40k journey, and I started to discuss the Luton video if you watched this, but I kinda didn't finish it because it was one, far too long. Second, I just didn't see the point because whatever I say from here on out, for the rest of the video, I just want to keep for the future video that I want to make, that I'm still thinking about it, but because it's so complicated, I just cannot bring myself to do it yet, just because I want to do it right, and that entails a lot of elements. But with this topic here, I can kind of tap into what I wanted to say, what is more fascinating to me in 40k and the nature of the Emperor, all those things that really, like, they excite me so much because I really see a lot of deeper stuff here, deeper meanings, all of that. Now, you have to have in mind that that's the disclaimer part, you can say. Once again, since I've started 40k, you guys have been very vocal. You recommended me a ton of stuff. I kept studying and I'm still doing that all the time. So, of course, I'm gonna expand my knowledge of 40k as time progresses. That's not gonna stop anytime soon. I'm gonna keep going. And I also saw a lot of conflicting opinions about different things, even in the comment sections of, people like Luton and the other guys, Major Q and all of that. Everybody has their own view about different things in 40k, and of course that is the same with every universe. But 40k is so layered that, of course, there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna see things in their own way. And like I said in my previous streams, what I can compare that different view of things is like this crystal pyramid, that just light passes through the pyramid, and when light passes, there's a rainbow coming from the other side, because that is how the pyramid breaks down the light in the different colors, and that's how you see the rainbow. So basically, that's very good analogy to express how everybody's gonna see things through their pyramid, through their prisma, so to speak. And from me, from my perspective, I studied a lot of things that, yeah, you can say that I've studied so many things. I have so many interests that you will never guess about me if you don't know me. So, yeah, and I also studied what some of the writers of 40k also look into before they start writing, whatever I could find, basically. One of the most key things about being a writer is to know what you're talking about, and this requires a ton of research in different fields. So basically, when it comes to writing something, fictional, something that has to do with gods, paranormal, all of those things, you have to do your research. that is totally irrelevant to what you personally believe in as a creator. Of course, you can, have interest in those fields or not. You can believe some of those things or not. It's just all up to you. But that goes for people that read, I mean us, we that read those stories. So basically, we also have that. We also have some kind of a background of what we've read, what is our philosophy based of what we know and what we've read, how we form our opinions and view of the world and everything that we take in as as any kind of a content, stories, whatever have you. Everybody's gonna differ. So from that perspective, guys, we all form some kind of a perception of the world and of what we see. Now, having in mind my own background and what I have learned and studied and studied and studied more than you can ever imagine, I also can say, without taking into account what I personally believe, because that's totally irrelevant to 40k. That's irrelevant, in my initial, so to speak, initial, analysis of what I thought at first of 40k. It was interesting to interact with you guys and to share my initial impressions and thoughts, what I think is going on here. There's a lot of things that you guys told me that I nailed and that, yeah, that's correct and all those things. I was very like, oh, okay, well, if those writers are anything like me, maybe they did apply some of particular knowledge in 40k when they wrote their story. So that is how I'm able to, so to speak, understand 40k, how some things work. Now, once again, what somebody believes from their personal standpoint has nothing to do with 40k. I mean, let's say that all the writers that wrote 40k, they read a ton of stuff that helped them create 40k, but they choose what they're gonna bring from what they've studied into 40k, and they choose how things work in 40k. I mean, in 40k, they can think of spirituality to work on different levels. There's a lot of things about the human soul that do not coincide with, a lot of other things that you can read to become an author, a writer, and all of those things. There's a lot of things that are very, very, very similar, but a lot of things that are not similar. So that also makes it very interesting, because you can see how things also differ and you can see where things are similar. But my point is, we are gonna start the video. But my point is, guys, that you have to always have in mind, because I see the comments. Sometimes they do disappear a lot on me, and I want to read something, and then I go to read it and go to the video, and just, yeah, there's nothing there. It's gone. Anyway, what I managed to read from a lot of comments is that some people think that what I'm discussing or what I am saying is what I'm really thinking about life, and not what I'm thinking about 40k. But there has to be a distinction here, to not make this mistake to think that what my personal opinion is of life or how things really work, I'm implying that 40k. No, I'm just trying to see what the writer, what they did imply from what they did research into 40k, and that way to try to understand it better, So it's totally irrelevant what the writers or I believe in real life or not, no matter what we studied, how much we believe that or not. All that it matters is how, what are the similarities in 40k, how and what is applying to 40k according to how I see things. So it's totally unbiased, totally objectively through my knowledge, trying to dissect 40k. And that is something that is kind of an exercise, a way of studying that we did in school when I studied, a ton of different writers, a ton of different, super famous, world. I mean, there's so many things Odyssey, and all of those things that are mandatory to study, but we studied that word that I can't say in English, lit literature. um, we studied in the way that we had to dissect what the writer is trying to tell us, and I was just the best at that. And my teacher is a real aristocrat, actually, that just dedicated her life to, teach kids how to think, so to speak. So I have a background in that. I have a background in, yeah, a lot of the same things that all of those writers had to study in order to write those stories. Yeah, so that is why 40K is extremely fascinating to me, because it's a mystery. It's a real mystery how some things are written, and there's a lot of wisdom if you can see it, and if you understand what it actually means. And of course, I can always be wrong. Everybody can always be wrong, but it's so interesting to exercise our brains and just think upon that, because it's beautiful, it's just it's it has such a depth, and that's what is beautiful, because it's just not something superficial. Yeah, I mean, just watching now Hell's Reach in that last scene, I really wish that I can watch it again. I mean, I'm gonna watch it again on my own time and just dissect those moments, and what does it mean, that uh, the only survivor that thought that he's gonna die, he was actually the only survivor, I mean, okay. It's amazing. I don't want to cry again, but there's some kind of a symbolism, because he started saying he's gonna die, but in the end, kind of like he actually did die, because everybody that he ever knew died. So yeah, living like this, it's almost like dying in a way. It's an other type of death, you can say. For him to be the only one standing alone without anybody else that he fought for hundreds of years. Those are just my initial thoughts. I mean, I'm not still into that mindset of Hell's Reach. I have to sit and watch it again and really bring those emotions out and just try to dissect what actually happened, because I was just taken by everything that happened in the last few minutes, and yeah, cried. Okay, so I just wanted to say that for everybody else, because, well, whatever I say, I know that I'm gonna see 1,000 comments after that, like, Gary, you have to read this, and I'm like, I know, okay, I still can have my initial or my own thoughts for this period of time. Now, a lot of people are watching my old, like, Bricky's reactions and all of that, and even some guy said that I implied human qualities to orcs, which I never did. Like, even then I knew that orcs were not with human intelligence. Their function totally different, and totally different organism, spores, um, so different. I mean, so I just wonder how I could be so misunderstood that it's just ridiculous. But everything is possible. Whatever it is, I'm gonna say what I just understand the moment. But I can assure you that I'm extremely just taken, fascinated by 40K and about what we're gonna watch right now. So you can see that, I'm just full of energy about this. So stoked. I am checking your comments. Okay, real quick. So you're writing. Okay, you're talking about. Yeah, okay, your own stuff. But in order to not make this 5 hours long, let's start, and we're going to talk after it. A lot of stuff to talk about, indeed.
Primarch talk
Okay, we're gonna
with the
start right now.
Primarch of the Night Lords himself, Konrad Curze, the Night Haunter.
Yes, and before we continue, just to, refresh your memory, that I did finish those 3 books, the Night Lord's Omnibus. So from there, I got an idea about Konrad Curze by what the Night Lords talked, in passing about him and how he was in life and all of those things. So I got very interesting, insight from their perspective, how they view their Primarch.
And we're taking a look at one of the most intriguing scenes in his entire story: the forgiveness of the Emperor.
Yeah, let's call it
Spoiler
that.
warning to begin. The events we are discussing today are from the Horus Heresy Primarch series novel Konrad Curze, The Night Haunter by Guy Haley. As always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself.
Indeed.
Not only that, we help to support the Great Games Workshop and Black Library, because without them, we don't have this amazing lore to talk about. I will put a link in the description as always.
Yep.
But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, the fall of Konrad Curze was something that was a long time coming. His struggle with his sanity was a battle he always seemed to be losing, especially from the viewpoints of his brothers. Sharing his father's gift of foresight, Curze became tormented by the idea of fate. But whereas Sanguinius came to decide it could be changed, for Curze, it was inescapable. He saw the assassin who comes for him in the Emperor's name, and it became his vindication. And on a barren world beyond even the light of the Astronomicon, Curze, now finally consumed by his madness, given in completely to the aspect of himself known as the Night Haunter, he awaits his end. He speaks with the Emperor, except this Emperor is a crude statue he has made out of the corpses of the dead. And Curze uses this as some form of sick confessional, laying bare his sins. And it's an extremely fascinating read throughout. I highly recommend the novel. The broken man Curze has become, the split personality, Konrad Curze and the Night Haunter. But with the confession of Nostramo's destruction, Curze asks what else could be done except condemning him to death. But still he receives no answer from the statue. So he in turn judges the Emperor guilty, lamenting his one regret, that he ever took up the name Konrad Curze. For yes, the Night Haunter was indeed a monster, but monsters are needed. The monster that is the Night Haunter brought peace to Nostramo, and it was Konrad Curze, not the Night Haunter, who sealed his fate. He smiled. If there had been anyone to see it, their heart would have been shattered to see the pain that it expressed.
Oh yes.
Father, 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 he said. A single tear ran down his cheek. By its progress, a little of his lost majesty was restored. The patina of corruption was rinsed away by grief. Through the grime, the caked-on blood, pure white skin, forged by artful genecraft, shone in the tear's track. Had I my time again, and freedom from fate's chains to act, I would never have become Konrad Curze. Konrad Curze was a betrayer, an unbeliever, a lunatic. But worst of all, father, Konrad Curze was weak. Night Haunter was strong. He gripped his book tightly. And in this benighted hell you have wrought, weakness is the greatest crime of all. Unburdened of this last confession, Curze shut his eyes and exposed his black teeth in a radiant smile. But the more Curze talks, the more he needs absolution. But there are no words that can eradicate his sins. A sense of pressure building before a storm pressed the air in the room to an uncomfortable thickness. From out of this rolled a thunder of words that Curze had yearned for, yet in the last sane pockets of his mind, had never expected. You are not weak, my son. The voice drove Curze to his knees with its power. His head rang with sudden white pain. A roaring hurricane of might blasted from the figure, tossing the remains of his last victims around, and burning out the wall, exposing Curze to the light of the hateful stars. "Father," he said. His voice was fractured, small, a child's voice, pitiful. Finally, the Emperor speaks to his son. Now, of course, whether this is truly the Emperor or Curze's own mind is up to you to decide.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop it here to comment the first part before we go any further, because it's just gonna get more and more interesting from here. So yeah, first I want to comment on how it is explained, how, uh, what is his state in this moment. He took a lot of bodies, he made from that body some kind of a Frankenstein corpse, and tried to speak to it and to express his anger and pain towards the emperor. Yeah, so that is twisted, of course, but the point of this scene, how I see it, is, well, here is basically expressed the downfall of what it's like to be really, really in descent, in complete and utter negativity, and basically what is called evil. So, when somebody loses their original path, which is supposed to be the path of their correct development, and we all know in the case of the Primarks, they were supposed to be with the Emperor, they were supposed to grow alongside the Emperor, but they are all scattered and they did not grow up with the Emperor. Now, some of them I watched today, like Horus, was found as early as possible, so he actually grew up, so to speak, more with the Emperor. He was rather young, not sure how young, but that is what I understand. So he is the freaking, who Horus is. So he still steered in the wrong direction. Now, steering in the wrong direction, in that spiritual, if you have to look at from this sense, because you do, I mean, he has his development tied to his spirit development as well. I mean, as a being, as a whole. There's always two paths. There's the right path, the path that he's supposed to, in this case, Conrad, that he was supposed to go on, so he can become what the emperor intended of him. And then there's the wrong path, where he can just go in a very crooked line, and that will end in destruction and all of those the bad things that did happen. So basically, when he descended into evil, he let himself do the things that he did, the horrible things, all of that. I mean, initially he had good intentions, but we all know that the path to hell is laid by good intentions. That just means that you can think that you're right in your perception, but in reality you are just deceiving yourself and doing the wrong choices. You are giving up. When you're giving up, you express weakness because you don't want to, keep yourself together and do the right thing, do the harder choice. The harder choice is usually what is associated with the good choice, the positive choice, because it's harder to go onto that path rather than just to give in. And when you give in and start doing bad things, you are descending further down with every with everything, every bad thing that you do. So at the end, that's what made him mad, pretty much. I mean, because he is, he's deviating. Yes, he's deviating from his right path, and that is his wrong path. His wrong path leads to wrong development. That wrong development leads to madness because, like I've said, everything that is, basically evil, negative, all of those things is twisted and it's crooked and it's ugly, basically. And that is how he is turning from the inside to the outside as well. And that is how, one thing leads to another. Bad thoughts, leads to more bad thoughts. It's just like a never ending spiral that is like a domino effect of bad to worse to even worse. So that is how he ends up, so to speak, in madness. He screams from the inside that he wants to be what he's supposed to be, but he just gives up initially. He's filled with pain, with sorrow that leads to the madness, and he's like, I'm just gonna freak out and do evil. I don't care anymore. And basically the logic on him is lost. He is in this defiant mode. He is in denial about everything. So everything that you can count as negative thought just leads to another negative thought that just further convinces him that he is right, but that further leads to the next bad quality that he develops, and the next bad well, he's getting more convinced, but in the same time he's getting more more, well, evil. And yeah, he's doing this to himself. So he is sick from the inside. He's making himself sick, and because he's not himself, he's not going to the right path, he's going to the wrong path, and he's getting sicker and sicker in every well, basically sense of the word. And that leads to extreme disharmony in his whole being. So he's in denial, he's disharmony, he is just into the negative, and the negative just is like a black hole. It just keeps pulling you in and in and in. And if you don't do the opposite, and if you don't gather the strength to break out of that and actually to go to the right path, it's just gonna keep going, just gonna keep pulling you in. But the further you go into the black hole, the harder it gets to get out of it. And he is descended so further into that black hole that it feels like there's just no escape. But in the end, because he knows that he's gonna die real soon, he starts to think upon, well, maybe I should just throw a temper tantrum and blame the father for everything because I am still weak. I still can't do it. Now the emperor has a different point of view. I mean, he knows all of that, but he has this point of view where he looks things from above, like from very, very above. He sees the two paths. He sees what his son could have become, what he did become, and he sees how this came to pass, and he's trying to talk some sense into him, or at least to say what he needs to say, and in the hopes that at least gonna somehow bring some kind of a light to his son. The words need to be spoken even if Conrad doesn't assimilate them, so to speak. But we're gonna get into that. Of course, he is the wolf, he is gonna say that that may be just in his mind because he's crazy. That's a matter of debate, but I think that what the emperor is gonna say now is meaningful whatever way you can look at it. Although Conrad in his descent, I don't think that he can come up with, his mind come up with that truth that the emperor actually said. So to me, at least for what I how I understand this scene, I also like the wolf, think that it's the real deal and he really talked with the emperor. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm just very, very excited about this, so let's continue.
The sheer force of it certainly implies it is, but we'll definitely see hints for both arguments throughout. But the most impactful thing for me is not the Emperor telling his son that he's not weak, but the reaction from Curze at finally, after so long, hearing his father's voice. "Father," he said. His voice was fractured, small, a child's voice, pitiful. For all the actions of the Night Haunter, the deaths, the chaos, the worst is how he has used it to overwhelm his true self, to be a mask. Now, of course, perhaps you agree with Curze that the Night Haunter is his true nature. But to me, That last line proves it is entirely a mask, something he desperately clings onto.
Exactly what I said. Yeah, that this evil side of him is something that he desperately clings on to. I mean, he said it actually very abbreviated, but it's just perfect. That is what it means to descend into evil. Because you can't, because you're so descending into evil, you cannot go back to good all of a sudden. You cannot just change yourself, you know. You feel that the only thing that you can do is to cling more onto that evil, and that somehow is gonna make sense. So once again, it's a spiral. It's pulling you in and in and in, and just doesn't make any sense at some point. But you still do it. It's like being a drug addict or something. Keep doing something very bad to yourself all of the time, and just become more desperate and more pitiful and all of those things. I mean, how it's written, every word is so important and it means a lot to his state of being, of mind, and how he really is, what he really has become. So everything matters, every word matters.
Hide from his fears. Inside, the true Konrad Curze is simply a child yearning for the help of his father. How ironic. The Primarch of fear is simply scared himself. I am beyond your accusations, beyond speech, beyond anything. Why do you think that I speak? Your madness is finally complete. Again the words rang Curze's skull with the force of a clapper striking a bell. Still he managed to grin and raise his head to stare at the meat thing's glory, though he was forced to squint against the blazing light. No, no, you are here. I hear you. You have come to face my judgment, drawn by this offering I have made. You ever were a bloody god. Now that passage by the Emperor seems pretty out of character to me. Your madness is complete. That sounds more like Curze's faults than something the Emperor would say to me.
To me, it's the opposite. I think that the Emperor would say, your madness is complete, and he just came into his son's last moments, so to speak. You know, he decided to, like I've said, just have this interaction with him for the last time, make him have some kind of a looking back at his actions, what he has become, and just to make him think about that, at least make him think about that, you know, to see, check for himself how his son is gonna reply, how far he is falling, you know, how he is descended. So he is saying those things to see how Conrad's gonna react, and he's still reacting very immaturely. Like I've mentioned, you know, my thoughts on the Rogel Dorn, second video, that from what I know about all the Primarchs till now, those that, you know, ended up being the traitors are really those that always had some kind of a inner, you know, imbalance, and when the time came to turn, they just turned. I mean, they were ready to turn, and that speaks of a lot of really really low human qualities and immaturity, lack of wisdom, all of those things. So yeah, I mean, I know that they can process information a lot faster than humans that have these cognitive abilities. They have so many above human abilities, but that doesn't mean that they have wisdom. That is something else. It's not pure calculative ability. That's different. It's not just intelligent on particular basis. Wisdom is something that you either can reach if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to work on your ego and learn to be more objective and just perceive the world in an unbiased way. That all of that is wisdom. but to achieve that, there's a lot of effort required, and you have to consciously work towards it. It could not be just imprinted on your butt and slap you on a butt and be like, on your way, you're wise now. No, this is something that has to come from the inside, to consciously seek it and to, have the desire to acquire it. And yeah, I mean, to be ready to forget about a lot of pitiful qualities that humans have, how the ego holds you back, all of those things. You have to be able to be with this perception over a lot of things without being arrogant. That too. A lot to this, but yeah, continuing.
Drawing in the doubt of, is this real or not? I am no god, nor shall ever be. Curze got back up, his feathered cloak whipping in the psychic gale, his book clutched protectively to his chest. You are here. You understand your guilt. You have come to face my judgment. You cannot condemn me. I am punished enough. There is not enough punishment for what you have done. Not in this life, or in the next, shouted Curze. How dare you presume to understand what I have done, and what sacrifices I have made, and what I now must suffer? The force of the voice battered Curze back. You will never know the depth of my pain, for which I am grateful. Curze opened his eyes to peer sidelong at the figure. Why such hollow words? The voice took a moment before it returned, again with thunderous force that made Curze howl. No father wishes his sons to suffer, no matter what burdens he is forced to place upon them. Man, what a passage. That is very much my emperor, scolding Curze for having no idea of his sacrifices. But still, after it all, being grateful, Curze will never know that pain. And no father wishes to see his sons suffer, despite the burdens he places upon them. I believe the Emperor truly does feel this way. Extra spoiler warning here, but there's a line in the novel Valdor where Malcador speaks of the Emperor calling the Primarks his sons long before he's reunited with any of them. Which to me really kind of ends the whole Primarks were just tools argument. Yes, they were absolutely made for a reason, but he did come to care for them as sons. And whether real or Curze's mind, clearly deep inside, beneath all the words of defiance, whether he wishes to admit it or not, Curze knows it.
Yeah, I also think that the Emperor did care about the Primarchs. Initially, when I started once again with 40k, I also, read about how, I think it was Ribute Gilliman, I'm not sure, that said that, he was like, the Emperor was like, oh, they're just tools. I don't remember the exact passage, but then I understood a lot more other things. So yeah, I do think that he did care. It's just that the Emperor has different perception. He's so different. He is somebody that really looks things from a broader perspective, from the outside, you can say. So whatever he says, to understand him could be extremely difficult, because everybody is going to come from a perspective of being like, let's say, in a valley somewhere, and you're trying to see something that's in the sky. That's not gonna happen if you don't have necessary tools. Even if you do, you're just gonna see like small little thing, and you're not gonna be able to grasp that object's how how the sorry, Bulgarian trying to come out, but you're not going to be able to grasp the object in its entirety. You're not going to be able to understand the object, how it really is if you're standing next to it. So every time that, this analogy is really good when you're when somebody that's lower level even if that's literal or metaphorically, then something else. It's very hard for that, from that perspective, from that lower perspective, to understand something that is in a higher uh, level of some sorts. So basically, the emperor is the highest of beings in a lot of ways, so many ways. Primarchs are extension of him, but they're still lower than him. They cannot grasp what, what is in his head, what is the nature of his being really, because he is what it precedes them. He is what is their creator, so to speak. That's not exactly like the god analogy, but in a way it kind of is, because he is really what humanity is supposed to be in thousands and thousands of years, but just he is already that before everybody else. That's something that also in TTS was mentioned in one of the, like the middle episodes that we saw. They made very good, like, explanation of the lore. It was really fascinating, and I think that they nailed it on the head when they said how the emperor is what the humanity is supposed to be if there's enough of development, if the whole humanity develops in that correct path. And the primarchs are what is before that, the level before that. And thus the emperor does have idea of the future. He does have some vision, of course. He does have like super wide view. Like imagine if he's a dot and he can view like this area, but you can only view from this to like above, and you can only like read a small from this perspective. But he is like here and he sees like this. And the primarchs are like close to him, but they can still like see a bit narrower, so to speak. They just see what is, what they're allowed to see according to their own development and purpose. But the emperor's purpose is much greater. He has to overview like the whole galaxy, and that that's not even assimilatable. Fun. How's the word for that? It's hard to fathom. Yes. So it's hard to understand something that is just so above and beyond. That's what I mean. And even for the Primarchs, they can carry some of his qualities of the Emperor. They can carry what they need to carry to fulfill their purpose, but that doesn't mean that they're on that level of what the Emperor is. He is totally different. But also, it doesn't mean that he does not respect what they are and their purpose, their higher purpose, because they are, next to him, so to speak. There's nothing greater than them, and except the Emperor himself. So, of course, that he has some kind of a appreciation for them, to say the least, and for their purpose. But that doesn't mean that they're like super high or super low. It just means that they are what they're supposed to be for their uh, existence, for the meaning of their existence. So that is very interesting thing to have in mind, and that has to be assimilated without any arrogance or anything like that. It's just how things are. It's just how he is. It's his nature. I mean, of the emperor, that he is. Well, once again, I don't want to say like a god, but in a matter of development and on so many levels of perception, not only, I mean, intelligence as well, but perception of the world, of the universe, of his whole knowledge, the warp, everything that you can think of. He just has this knowledge of the fabric of how everything should be or should work. He had that vision. And for instance, Rogal Dawn, he embraced that vision of the imperium. He put it like into his hindsight as this ideal that he really wanted to fight for, to strive towards, to build it, and that is his purpose, and he did develop correctly. How Rebute Gilliman developed correctly, and that's how he is now, the boss, so to speak, of the Imperium. But yeah, I mean that, like in their example, they are fulfilling their destiny and they did what they were supposed to do and they developed correctly. That doesn't mean that they're comparable to the emperor in like the same level or something like this. It does mean that they are what's supposed to be, and for their level and their purpose, they're doing a great job. So it's important to understand how the emperor differs in a lot of ways. There's just, if everybody else has like layers upon layers to them, let's say for instance Malkador, he is amazing example of a lot of other things, and he's a different story, but the point is that everybody has something to them that is extremely important, and in that point in time that they exist, they have their role to fulfill. No matter how small or big, they're important in their way. But yeah, the emperor still is one above all, and it's hard to understand him. But whatever he says holds great weight and meaning. Like I can even speak for what he said here. Like
That sounds more like Curze's thoughts than something the Emperor would say to me, already drawing in the doubt of is this real or not. I am no god, nor shall ever be.
Yeah, that is very yeah, you can think a lot of those on those words, but like I've said, he wants to be assimilated not as a god, but as the ideal that humanity should strive towards. So, in that kind of a way, well, that's totally different topic, because then we have to talk about how people think and feel about chaos, and then what that is doing to everything, and it's gonna be a long topic, so continuing.
Curze got back up, his feathered cloak whipping in the psychic gale,
I just want to
his
hear
book
that
clutched protectively to his chest. You are here. You understand your guilt. You have come to face my judgment. You cannot condemn me. I am punished enough. There is not enough punishment for what you have done. Not in this life, or in the next, shouted Curze. How dare you presume to understand what I have done, and what sacrifices I have made, and what I now must suffer? The force of the voice battered Curze back. You will never know the depth of my pain, for which I am grateful.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said, how the emperor sees things, how he understands things. That's always going to be what others cannot understand. So that's how emperor, that this is where he comes from. He's like, you never know what I had to do to be the emperor and what I put in motion. There are just so many events, so many things that he influenced, he did personally, he initiated all of that how can you grasp that? That's thousands of years that he sat in the shadows, that he was revealing himself, that he started so many things that he planned. Also, he had the idea before that, so he had millennials upon millennials to create this grasp over destiny, world, and everything. So yeah, he means a lot when he says all of that.
Curze opened his eyes to peer sidelong at the figure. Why such hollow words? The voice took a moment before it returned, again with thunderous force that made Curze howl. No father wishes his sons to suffer, no matter what burdens he is forced to place upon them. Man, what a passage. That is very much my emperor, scolding Curze for having no idea of his sacrifices. But still, after it all, being grateful Curze will never know that pain. And no father wishes to see his sons suffer, despite the burdens he places upon them. I believe the Emperor truly does feel this way. Extra spoiler warning here, but there's a line in the novel Valdor where Malcador speaks of the Emperor calling the Primarchs his sons long before he's reunited with any of them. Which to me really kind of ends the whole Primarchs were just tools argument. Yes, they were absolutely made for a reason, but he did come to care for them as sons. And whether real or Curze's mind, clearly deep inside, beneath all the words of defiance, whether he wishes to admit it or not, Curze knows it. Curze laughed. An apology? What next? Will you forgive me? Sanguinius warned me you might, he scoffed. There was never anything to forgive. You acted as you were made to, but my plan was interfered with. Your insanity was not your fault, nor was it mine. Curze snarled like an animal. Lies. Everything was as you intended. There is nothing you have done wrong. If only you and I could have met one more time, I could have shown you back to the light. And that is something I've always thought about. Just what if the Emperor could have met each of the traitor Primarchs just one more time? How many would have turned back to the light when stood before the Emperor? Perhaps not all of them, but Perturabo? Most definitely. Magnus? Quite possibly. But Curze? Could the Emperor have saved his son? For all the scorn the Emperor receives for abandoning the Great Crusade, it really works out perfectly for the story, leaving us just to ponder these powerful what-if moments. Curze goes on to rage that light is anathema to him, only for the Emperor to reply, "Light is within you all. You are my sons. You are born of light.
Yeah,
None
initially.
of you are beyond redemption." Curze snarkily makes a jab about the ones who died. Nothing ever dies. Death is a state of transition.
Yeah.
You have my forgiveness, Conrad, whether you want it or not. Never. The voice in his head would not relent, but
So I'm gonna go back a bit. Yeah, just want to say that again, there's so many things to dissect here, but most importantly, maybe is the fact that the Emperor just trying to say that he is born from light. That means in the correct way, like I said, for the correct path, and all of that was set in motion. But then the plan, like we know, was changed, unfortunately, because of the forces of chaos. He didn't grow up with the Emperor, all of those things, and that is not his fault, and that is not the Emperor's fault. It's how the other forces acted, and it changed everything. But that doesn't change the fact that Conrad and everybody else from the Primarchs are born from the light and are meant to go to towards and on that path. So what the Emperor is trying to say is, you are not evil in your heart. You're not beyond redemption, because if he just chooses to go back to that path, if he chooses to go to the correct path, he's just gonna go on that, but he just can't see that. He is in denial all of the time. He just, the Emperor tries to say something and bring him forward, and Conrad is like getting more into himself and just trying to pull everything deeper, say it's lies. He is doing that to himself. That, I don't know in English if there's an equivalent to that, but in Bulgaria we say to something like that is to entangle yourself, so to speak. When you take you go fishing, like you do this with the fishing string, yeah, and you entangle it more and more and more to pull the fish. Well, that is how he's doing to himself. He's like trying to do it more. The more you're trying to talk him out of his downfall, the more he is convincing himself that no, everything's so bad and you're so bad and all of those are lies. He doesn't want to listen. He is putting the veil over his eyes. He is just, yeah, it's equivalent of just, you know, putting yourself onto a knife like 1,000 times and keep going. Just keep going. Yeah, somebody is like, no, don't do that to your stomach with that knife. No, no, no. I'm gonna keep going. It feels right. you know. So, well, it's a funny example, but it's basically what it is. He just doesn't realize it because he is so deep. He's so deep. That's like floating sands. How it just, the more you move, the more you sink. But if you actually calm down and stay steady, you know, if you come to your center, you're gonna stop sinking. You know, that's perfect, actually. Perfect analogy with the sinking, the liquid sand, all of that.
You are born of light. None of you are beyond redemption. Curze snarkily makes a jab about the ones who died. Nothing ever dies. Death is a state of transition. You have my forgiveness, Conrad, whether you want it or not. Never. The voice in his head would not relent, but pounded mercilessly on. More masonry fell from the outside wall. The floor collapsed behind him. You made but one mistake, my son. From it, all the evil you have perpetrated springs.
Yeah.
You chose to believe in immutable fate. Without choice, there is nothing. The functioning of this universe depends upon choice. A single fate is one book in a library of illimitable futures.
Mm-hmm.
You read only one. Do you not see that you chose this? You chose to be fate's prisoner. Had you believed in your own agency, none of this would have come to pass.
Exactly.
You chose to be the way you are. Trapped, manipulated, insane. Curze's smile froze, seeming to become detached from the face that wore it, hovering menacingly about his lips as a thing unique to itself, before it collapsed with all the violence of a dying star, and his mouth became a screaming hole. No, you sent the assassins to kill me. You want me dead. You determined what fate you trod. Your belief, my son, is nothing but an excuse for your failings. And there, as we spoke about before, unlike Sanguinius, who came to believe we do have a choice with fate, Curze let it define him, choosing to believe it was set, refusing to believe in another path. Yelling his objections, Curze dives into the light of the Emperor, feeling it burning his eyes. He vents his frustration on his crude effigy, ripping and tearing it apart. But as the light fades, Curze remains crying and trembling. He can't be forgiven. He can't. He had no choice. And there, alone, Konrad Curze wraps his arms around his broken tribute to his father and waits for the voice he will never hear again.
How sad.
Man, what an ending. For all Conrad's done, you can't help but feel sympathy for him here. The demigod of war, Lord of Darkness, simply a crying child, a son yearning for the embrace of his father. Man, really, really good scene. One final glimpse behind the mask of the Night Haunter. Was it real? Did the Emperor truly speak with his son? Or was it all in Conrad's mind? We'll never know for sure. My opinion? Well, you know me, I like to believe it was the Emperor, reaching out to his son one last time. But realistically, it could just as easily be, if not more likely, Curze's own fractured mind. The last part of Konrad Curze crying out against the monster he had become. Deep down, he knew the Emperor would forgive him. And that terrified him, because it meant all along his fate was not sealed. But man, that last image of Curze hugging a broken mound of corpses in tears, a final goodbye to his father. And man, it really makes me wish for a loyalist Konrad Curze. The Primarch he could have been, redeemed by the power of the Emperor. It will never happen, but we can dream. Can you imagine a loyalist Konrad Curze returned to the current 40k timeline? My lord, that would be great. But as always, guys, drop your thoughts.
Okay, so the most important words are the last. So, he didn't even scratch the surface. I mean, the wolf. There's so many things, but I'm gonna try to keep it as brief as possible. Although this is the most important part of what the emperor said, and here are the most dense words and the most meaning just put into a few words.
Curze snarkily makes a jab about the ones who died. Nothing ever dies. Death is a state of transition. You have my forgiveness, Conrad, whether you want it or not. Never.
Yeah, well, the emperor just being the emperor, he's not deviating from the light. He is that embodiment, so to speak. So he will not just fall into the chaos. He's continuing to be himself, continuing to speak with wisdom, and Conrad is continuing to defy him, deny everything, and just spiral into his own downfall, so to speak. Yeah.
The voice in his head would not relent, but pounded mercilessly on. More masonry fell from the outside wall. The floor collapsed behind him.
Yeah, and that is just the symbolism and metaphor. I mean, the walls collapsing, I mean, the floor, all the things that are breaking down around him, that is just a metaphor for how he is further descending into the evil that he chose. That's the point. He really chose this. And like the emperor said, oh, it's depending on choice. If you are in whatever situation you are, you can still choose something that is not the bad path, let's say. But of course, that's gonna come with some kind of a price, and but that's gonna define you. It's gonna define who you are as a person in whatever hard or easy moment in life is presented to us. What you choose is gonna define who you are as a person. So if you choose selfishly in a way that is not justified by, well, depending on situation, then that's gonna define you, it's gonna show your true colors. And Conrad had so many choices, and he always chose to butcher, kill, all of those things. I mean, he did do some, some good, of course, for his world. The point is that the emperor wanted to say that choices is what it defines everything. Without choice, there's nothing. Without choice, chaos can be chaos. If you don't choose chaos, chaos cannot function. If you don't choose something that puts it forward, something that enriches chaos, then chaos would not be enriched in all of those things. And same for good. So whatever people are doing to themselves, no one can do that. Whatever you do to yourself, no one can do that to you. What you can do to yourself, that is also the other message. And that everything is if you let it be. Everything exists if you let it exist, if you allow it to exist, if you give yourself in to something, so to speak. So everything really is a choice. People just don't realize that. They think that their hand is forced. Yeah, of course, there's certain situations that your hand could be forced for something. You can still choose to not do it, but then you're gonna have other consequences that you don't want to deal with. So you're gonna say, well, my hand was forced. But a lot of times it's just really, when you think about it, when you're being honest with yourself, you can be like, yeah, I could have done something different, but I know that I chose selfishly because otherwise this or that gonna happen. So that is applying to everything, pretty much in life. And the emperor just speaks with just broader wisdom to show him the bigger picture, that is not actually only about him, about Conrad, but is in general how things are. And Conrad could always had a better fate if he chose, but he didn't.
Nor was it mine. Curze snarled like an animal. Lies. Everything was as you intended. There is nothing you have done wrong. If only you and I could have met one more time, I could have shown you back to the light. And that is something I've always thought about. Light is within you all. You are my sons. You are born of light. None of you are beyond redemption.
No, I wanted to see that part about the book, and we have a bit more.
Inside, beneath all the words of defiance, whether he wishes to admit it or not, Curze knows it. Curze laughed. An apology? What next? Will you forgive me? Sanguinius warned me you might, he scoffed. There was never anything to forgive. You acted as you were made to.
Yeah, by the forces of chaos, so to speak.
But my plan was interfered with. Your insanity was not your fault, nor was it mine.
Well, basically, that means because of the initial things that happened. Yeah, in that kind of way, it's not his fault. Oh, but then he was conditioned to choose badly after these events, when he never grew up with the emperor, and then when the other things happened, and he was conditioned to turn into chaos within time, so to speak. The events, how they, you know the order of events, how they proceeded on the wrong path, led to his conditioning to eventually turn into chaos. But he did make along the lines choices. At some point, maybe initially he didn't realize that. So whatever he did not realize, it didn't make with any kind of awareness. You can say that is not his fault, because he was not conscious and realizing what he's doing. But then he started to get more into the evil part of things, and then he started to choose from his own self, his own awareness started to like it. So then that is where he starts to be responsible. Of course, those things are, you have to dissect his whole history to be extremely accurate how this happened, but that's the bottom line, basically. What he's trying to say, what the emperor's trying to say, and how things what he is trying to also explain to Conrad, how things happened. But then after those things that happened, and it was not up to Conrad, then he chose, then it starts to be, he starts to carry some kind of a responsibility, of course, for his actions, once he's becoming more aware of how he's descending, because he obviously has some kind of a consciousness now of what he has done, but now he's in denial and blames everything to the everything that he's done, his own actions, to, I mean, he puts that on the emperor. So that is where he is extremely wrong, and not only there, but yeah, one of the end times that he's gonna be wrong for the last time. But yeah,
Curze snarled like an animal. Lies. Everything was as you intended.
yeah, but no.
There is nothing you have done wrong.
Okay, we're
If
finished.
only you and I
Just
could
two
have
more.
met one more time, I could have shown you back to the light. And that is something I've always thought about. Just what if the Emperor could have met each of the traitor Primarchs just one more time? How many would have turned back to the light when stood before the Emperor? Perhaps not all of them, but Perturabo? Most definitely.
Okay.
Springs. You chose to believe in immutable fate. Without choice, there is nothing. The functioning of this universe depends upon choice. A single fate is one book in a library of illimitable futures. You read only one. Do you not see that you chose this? You chose to be fate's prisoner. Had you believed in your own agency, none of this would have come to pass. You chose to be the way you are, trapped, manipulated, insane.
Yeah.
Curze's smile froze, seeming to
enough,
become
pretty
detached
much.
from the face that wore
What
it,
he said,
hovering
self-explanatory.
menacingly about his lips as a thing unique to itself, before it collapsed with all the violence of a dying star, and his mouth became a screaming hole.
A dying star before he collapses. It's a dying star, yeah. He's like a dying star. Something very massive, significant, that was sometimes, I mean, in some point beautiful, but now it's a collapsing star, and we all know what is gonna happen when a star collapses. It's a shadow of its former self, so to speak.
No, you sent the assassins to kill me. You want me dead.
And he continues.
You determined what fate you trod. Your belief, my son, is nothing but an excuse for your failings.
Yeah.
And there, as we spoke about before,
He manipulated himself to believe all of that. And this led to his assassination.
unlike Sanguinius, who came to believe we do have a choice with fate, Curze let it define him.
Yeah, and plus Sanguinius is an amazing example. He's the exact opposite. He is just this amazing example of someone that strongly is just nurtured by the light, the love, the strength that comes from that. He is fully embraced that goodness, that light that the emperor embodies, and he is fighting for it. He is just channeling it. What he did to hold the gates of Terra, how he fought the demon, all of those things. That is only possible with determination and with the channeling of that inner strength, the goodness that he chose to nurture and to embody. He is just the total opposite. And yeah, he got killed, but he got killed on his own terms in a way, because he did fight as a warrior. He fight and died as a warrior, protecting his emperor. He gave his all. He did an amazing feat with that gate, and just in general for how long and how hard he fought, how bravely, how just magnificently, how he inspired his troops, and all of that we got to experience with the Rogodon Part 2. Just I was so immersed in the story. So he is really sanguineous. He is pure in that way. I mean, he's not perfect. But he chose to nourish the goodness and the light. So he basically, if he was left alive, he would be hopefully, well, he should be improved in time and become better and better and better and all of those things, and become more than, I'm sorry. I think I'm gonna sneeze, sorry. So I'm still gonna sneeze probably in a
Choosing to
bit.
believe.
But yeah, that's the point, that he is the opposite. He is like the closest thing to the Archangel Michael. He is like, the closest thing. He's based on Michael, I'm pretty sure. If you know enough about Michael, is the archangel that's closest to God, the ones that gives his all for humanity, the ones that is closer to humanity in terms of his deeds, his connection, his own desire to help the development and push it forward. All of those things. If you know about those things, you see that Sanguinius is like the closest thing to that to those characteristics of Michael. Now, of course, like I've said, 40k, it's 40k, it's its own thing, completely. But a lot of the Primarchs, the symbolism behind their names, the symbolism behind their image visually, how they are described, ways of thinking, philosophy, they're always based on someone that you may or may not heard about, but they are all based on someone very significant, so to speak. Let's just say that.
Refusing to believe in another path.
He's
Yelling his
refusing.
objections, Curze dives into the light of the Emperor, feeling it burning his eyes. He vents his frustration on his crude effigy, ripping and tearing it apart. But as the light fades, Curze remains crying and trembling.
Yeah, he's
He
broken,
can't be forgiven.
destroyed by
He
himself.
can't. He had no choice. And
That's
there,
what he thinks.
alone, Konrad Curze wraps his arms around his broken tribute to his father
And how sad is that?
and waits for the voice he will never hear again.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve to.
Man, what an ending.
Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna stop it here and just pause it on this picture still because this is epic. It's one of my favorite, favorite just visions of the Emperor. Just beautiful. So yeah, those are my thoughts, guys. Like I've said, just based on this scene, this is what I can extract from it, from my own personal prism, whatever in English, how it exactly is pronounced, but you know what I mean. And yeah, it's like my passion project video stream. I just love to do these things live. Now I see that you wrote a lot of stuff. I'm gonna look on them, but I just have to get my thoughts out before I forget my what I wanted to say. So of course, this is not one of the times where I can interrupt my thoughts and just look at the comments 5 times because I'm just totally gonna forget what I was about to say. And it's really important for me to get all of that out because I just love that. I just love these stuff. Now, within the time that I'm going to have with 40k, if I ever have different view, if I ever change my opinion, something changes my opinion, of course I'm gonna make another video if I'm passionate about another video and maybe expand upon it. Everybody can change their point of view if something else is introduced, new information, all of that, but just based on this scene that's just so amazing on its own, based on what I know about Conrad, the Night Lords, the Emperor, all of that, I would say that as a extraction of what this is it and how it speaks to me, it's what I expressed with this stream. So that is that's my thoughts, guys. Now let's quickly see what is what you wrote. Now, you're talking about the other Primarchs. Okay. Oi. It's Helios. Oh, I don't think so, Nino. He's gonna turn humanity into BDSM freaks. It cannot be that superficial. It just can't be. With the Emperor, never is. Because then it's gonna be such a contradictory to his own intelligence and nature. If that's only, if you can look at the things this way, Okay, you're just going on a different topics, I see here. That's just different things that maybe are connected or maybe are not. Thanks, Blade. Thank you. We can, with 40K, you can start one topic and then go into 10 different that are connected to it somehow, some way, but I'm gonna contain this. I have to. Otherwise, we're just gonna be here forever, you know? When I just say, okay, never mind. Okay. Okay, guys, you're having a very interesting conversation. But as I said, I don't know if you caught the stream from the beginning, but please watch the beginning. I put a big context, where I'm coming from, and all of those things, which is extremely important to understand my point of view and why and how I'm dissecting things. And like I've said, everybody has their own crystal pyramid, so to speak, of understanding, and the light passes through. That's your train of thought and what comes out. I mean, the light is actually the information, and then it's just goes into the different colors, and that's the metaphor for each and every one of us, how we take information and how we actually understand it based on our own knowledge and well, what we read, what we went through, what we studied, and all of those things, and the same with all the people that write those things. So based on all of that, but like I said, I already explained this, so I'm not gonna repeat myself. I perfectly illustrated how I am doing these things that I do. So that is it, guys. Thank you very much for watching and being with me this very emotional Saturday, starting with Hell's Reach, crying on it, and finishing it. And I have to finish with Rogal Dawn. We have to actually watch episode 29 of Text to Speech. We have to start a podcast. A lot of things to do. 40K does not have an end, and thank God. But for now, it's very late, so I'm gonna tell ya good night in midnight. Sleep well. Love you guys. If you like to support me, you can check the links down below. Leave me suggestions on the Discord server. And for those of you that are fans, on my OnlyFans, I'm gonna record, release video and physique update as I promised tomorrow. So it's a very interesting topic. You're gonna see the teaser on YouTube for the rest of the guys that are not there, but you know that I love you, dear Garrity's Golden Astartes. Thank you for sharing this with me. And yeah, I'm just I'm just speechless about a lot of things in terms of how I am so fascinated with 40K. I'm just so happy that I found that. I can't tell you. Yeah, so love you guys. Till next time, sleep well, have a great Sunday, and see you tomorrow. Kisses and hugs. Night night.